just heard a song from the Jesuit Music Ministry. Follow jescom.ph on Spotify and Jescom Music on YouTube. We are also on iTunes and Deezer. Get your daily dose of inspiration through our music. Follow jescom.ph on Spotify and Jescom Music in YouTube.
W-Eagle kami, di mapipigil sa pagbabalitang tumpak at tama. Buhay atenista, sa loob sa labas ng eskwela, ating ibibida lahat ng eskwela.
Baka naman pwede.
Baka naman pwede?
Baka naman pwede.
Mga isyung napapanahon ating pag-usapan.
Baka naman pwede.
Gamit ang mga pananaw mula sa iba't ibang kalinangan.
Baka naman pwede.
Mula sa Institute of Philippine Culture, kami inyong samahan, tayo'y maghuntahan. Dito lang sa
Baka naman pwede.
Tuwing Huwebes, alas 3 ng hapon, dito lang sa radyo-katipunan 87.9 FM.
Magandang hapon sa lahat. Nakikinig kayo sa Baka Naman Pwede, isang programa ng Institute of Philippine Culture at ng Radyo Katipunan na naglalayong mapagnilayan gamit ang lente ng agham panlipunan o social sciences ang mga napapanahong usapin. Nais din nating mapag-usapan ang mga bagay na baka naman pwedeng tignan muli, pag-ukulan ng pansin at aksyonan. Ako si Trixie Beato at ako ang magiging host ninyo para sa hapong ito. Last week, nakasama natin ang grupo ni na Dr. Joy Calleja, Dr. Ton Clemente at Dr. Joy Mengito at pinag-usapan natin ang research nila tungkol sa capability gaps. Napag-usapan rin ang mga aspeto ng pagkakaroon ng magandang buhay at paano nakakaapekto ang sweldo dito. Ang ating topic this week ay isang mainit na topic na sigurado akong lahat kayo ay very interested at maraming mga tanong tungkol rito. Pag-uusapan natin ang election surveys. Ngayong nalalapit na ang halalan 2022, marami na rin tayong nakikitang mga surveys sa news. At makakasama natin ngayon si Dr. Mahar Mangahas at Dr. Ron Mendoza para mapag-usapan ang papel nito sa elections. Sa ating mga viewers sa Facebook, maaari kayong maging bahagi ng kwentuhan na ito. Feel free to leave comments and questions during the discussion and we'll be reading them during the Q&A portion. Hindi ko na patatagalin pa, please allow me to introduce our guests for this afternoon. Dr. Mahar Mangahas is a Filipino economist who has done research on rice economics, land reform, poverty, hunger, income inequality, quality of life governance, and public opinion. Dr. Mangahas has taught at the University of the Philippines, reaching the rank of Professor of Economics. He was UNICEF Social Indicators Consultant in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Vice President for the Research of the Development Academy of the Philippines, as well as editor of the Philippine Economic Journal, President of the Philippine Economic Society, and President of the Marketing and Opinion Research Society of the Philippines. He was also co-founder of the Philippine Agrarian Reform Foundation and co-founder of the Foundation for Economic Freedom. In 1985, he co-founded and has since then headed the Social Weather Stations, or SWS, the Philippines' leading institute in quality of life monitoring, opinion polling, and survey archiving. SWS received the 2019 award for the betterment of the human condition from the International Society for Quality of Life Studies. So magandang hapon po, Dr. Mahar, and thank you for joining us.
Magandang hapon.
Kasama rin natin ngayon si Dr. Ron Mendoza. He is a governance and institutional reform specialist with over 25 years of experience in development policy and public administration reforms. Presently, he is Dean and Professor of Economics at the Ateneo School of Government. From 2011 to 2015, he was an Associate Professor of Economics at the Asian Institute of Management, or AIM, and the Executive Director of the AIM Rizalino S. Navarro Policy Center for Competitiveness. Prior to that, he was a senior economist with the United Nations in New York, and his research background includes work with UNICEF, UNDP, the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, the Economic Intelligence Unit, and several Manila-based non-governmental organizations. In early 2021, the United Nations Economic and Social Council, or UN ECOSOC, approved Mendoza's appointment to serve with the 24-person UN Committee of the Experts on Public Administration from 2021 to 2025. So good afternoon po, Dean Ron, and thank you po for joining us.
Good afternoon, Bea and Mahar.
So it's great po to have you both on Baka naman pwede this afternoon. Maraming salamat sa pagpapa-unlock sa aming imbitasyon. So kamusta na po kayong dalawa? What have you both been up to lately? Maybe we can start po with Dr. Mahar.
Unang-una, hindi na ako presidente ng SWS. Ako ang tawag sa akin ngayon ay Chair Emeritus. Parang furniture, Chair na ako. Kasi ayaw lang sabihin chairman o chairwoman, naging chair na lang. May Netflix na gano'n, di ba? May chair. May programa. Chair lang. Ang bagong presidente ay si Linda Guerrero na 30-year plus veteran ng SWS. It's in good hands naman. So ako ay pasulat-sulat ako tuwing linggo sa dyaryo, yung column ko, Social Climate. And siyempre, nakikisali ako sa mga discussion namin sa opisina. Iko-comment ko na ba yung election surveys?
Maybe we can reserve it po for the next question. So let's ask po si Dean Ron, kamusta naman po kayo? What keeps you busy these days?
A lot of things, but first let me thank radyo-katipunan, IPC, and you, of course, Bea, for the kind invitation to join you today. It's an honor to join you and Prof. Mahar Mangahas, who's a long-time idol, academic idol for many of us working in this area. And I think it's great to have this kind of discussion given the environment we have today. What have I been keeping busy about? It's really part of this project called Participate, which is a pro-democracy coalition that we've been working with. And the goal is actually to provide evidence and information to our voters so that they can have a more informed choice for May 2022. At least that is the aspiration.
So thank you both for that. I'm sure both of you are keeping very busy, especially now that the elections nga po are coming up, and as mentioned po by Prof. Mahar, ang dami nga pong, this is a very hot topic and I'm sure a lot of people have questions. So maybe we can start po with your respective organizations and affiliations. So Prof. Mahar, you started discussing SWS po earlier, and can you tell us a little bit more about SWS and
Okay.
what do you do? What is the research
Okay.
targeted
Okay.
for?
Kami isang private NGO. NGO kami. Research Institute. And by the way, walang D sa SWS. Kagaya ng walaling D sa Loyola Heights, At saka hindi Loyola Heights all the time. Kami rin may S kami sa kahulihan. Social weather stations na walang D at may S. Salamat pala sa IPC kasi I remember now, IPC was my very first survey engagement in my life. Even directly, IPC survey on land reform in Nueva Ecija, 1973. So, mas una ang IPC sa surveys kaysa sa akin, siyempre. At ang mga nagtrabaho doon ay mga sociologists at psychologists. Kami mga economists, hardly were we involved in primary data gathering at that time. Anyway, ang SWS ay nagsusukat ng quality of life, uri ng pamumuhay, kabutihan. We do this by means of our surveys, of course, and we do it over time. Kami ang talagang may pinakamahabang at pinaka-regular na survey ng poverty at hunger sa Pilipinas. Mas madami pa kaysa sa gobyerno. So ito talagang dream ko na talagang mag-guide ang ating policy by quarterly data on poverty and hunger. At meron na kami. So ito ang aming advocacy na kailangan tingnan ito palagi. Otherwise, hindi alam Parang flying blind ang gobyerno. Flying blind ang mga people kung wala silang data. Actually, ngayon, hindi na flying blind in the sense that may data na. Kaya lang, ayaw pansinin. Kasi private. Kasi hindi gawa ng gobyerno. Hindi official. Okay? And that's something we're fighting. Okay? So, palagay ko nakikita niyo na linggo-linggo may mga releases ang SWS. Of course, tungkol sa COVID. Kasi yan ang pinaka-importanting topic itong 2 taon na ito. At dahil meron na kaming dahil sa dami na ng mga projects namin, ay meron na kaming resources na mag-sariling survey at least 4 times a year. Meron na kaming 4 na talagang amin ang buong agenda 4 times a year. So this is how we get our quarterly indicators, na talagang kontrolado namin, and we have been publishing this all along. And para sa amin, yan ang mas importante kaysa sa mga eleksyon. Basta pumunta lang kayo sa website, www.sws.org.ph, nandiyan, at makikita nyo, bawat report, nandun na rin yung mga historical data. All the way back. Yung poverty, 1992, quarterly, up to the present. Yung hunger, 1998, quarterly, up to the present. Mas madami kaming data kaysa sa gobyerno. Talaga. May takot maglakad sa gabi. Kasi it's dangerous. May natatakot na baka pasukan ang bahay nila. That's public security. May napagpansin kung ilang may mga durugista sa neighborhood. Yan ay quarterly ang data na yan. May data tungkol sa na pagnakawan sila sa kalye, tungkol sa pinasukan sila, burglary ng bahay, ninakawan ng kanilang sasakyan, carnapping. Ito ay quarterly at quarterly at quarterly. Ha? So mas marami, sa totoo, mas marami kaming data tungkol sa quality of life. Ha? Kasi yan ang talagang yan ang talagang agenda namin. Hindi kami nawawala ng agenda. Ha? Hindi kami nawawala ng marami. Ngayon, let me say something about yung election surveys. Kasi mga in the 1930s, in the 1930s, hindi pa uso itang mga social surveys at all. Akala nga ng mga ibang tao hindi pwedeng i-survey ang mga ordinary people at malaman kung anong mga gusto nila. Yung election predictions at that time ay ginagawa galing sa kupon na nakukuha sa magazine, sa isang magazine. Yung mga subscribers ng magazine na ito, nagpipill up nila kung sino iboboto nila. And for a while, it worked. Nakapag-predict yan. Hanggang palagay ko sa 1936, ayun, pumasok na si George Gallup. Pinasok na niya ng scientific sampling. No? Mas maliit ang sampling na ito. Mas maliit, pero mas scientific kaysa sa yung magazine na ang dami-dami mga subscribers. At siya ang talagang tumama, nag-predict. Nag-predict talaga ng election. At doon talaga nakita na, kung gagawin mo scientific ang sampling, may kaya itong mag-predict. Actually, ginamit yon sa consumer research. Yan ang bread and butter ng Gallup, hindi elections. Consumer research. Pero para malaman ninyo kung mabuti ang quality ng survey ninyo, kailangan umabot kayo hanggang sa prediction ng election at tingnan ninyo kung anong nangyari at yun ang magiging qualification ninyo. So, doon ako natatawa no? Meron nagsasabi na kung sinong lamang. Pero alam ninyo, dapat una-una, dapat ang gumagawa ay yung may mga track record na nakapag-predict na sila noon pa. Okay? At yung mga ngayon na social media, mga Facebook, mga ganun, ay walang experience yon talaga. Hindi pa ginagamit yon kahit sa ibang countries na pang-predict ng election. So parang propaganda lang yon, parang advertising sa dyaryo. So don't pay attention to that. Okay? Pangalawa,
go ahead.
Pangalawa, it's too early to predict an election. Kasi alam namin from our past research, no? Nung nag-survey kami at the time of the election, sa exit poll mismo, no? Kailan kayo nag-decide kung sino iboboto ninyo? By February, mga kalahati pa lang ang nag-decide kung sinong kandidato nila. So katapos sa March, sa April, sa May, marami pa. So itong panahon na ito, Oktubre pa, ay nako, walang sigurado. Walang anuman. Ito ang panahon para malaman kung anong mga issue, anong mga problema ng mga tao. Yun. Okay? So totoo, hindi ginagamit ng mga tao ang survey para mag-decide kung sino iboboto nila. No, that's false. Parang ginagawa mo stupido yung mga tao. Parang ginagawa ninyo, kung sino malakas ang boses, yan ang iboboto ninyo. Hindi naman gano'n ang mga Pilipino. And we've asked that also in surveys. So don't give that power to the surveys. You know, wala kaming kapangyarihan, wala kaming power na i-influence yung mga voters. Ino-observe lang namin kung ano ang mga nasa mood nila. Okay? At kung magpalit ang mood nila, magpapalit din yung mga resulta ng mga survey. Hindi ba? That's the way it goes. No? The surveys do not affect the people.
Very,
I'll let you
you
ask
raised
more questions.
you raised a lot of very interesting points, especially ano pa nga po na surveys are not just about yung sa results po ng elections and preferences po of the candidates. And I think related din po to sa the work po that Dean Ron mentioned po earlier. So maybe Dean Ron, you can also talk a bit more about Participate, which you mentioned earlier, as well as Boses Pilipinas. And maybe pwede nyo na rin pong pahapyawan yung surveys na ginagawa din po ninyo. Yun lang.
Yes, thank you, Bea. Thank you, Mahar. Natuwa lang ako dun sa kwento ni Mahar kasi kakapants ko pa lang sa grade school nung nag-start na si Mahar on this very, very illustrious body of work which he has done. And I think first we must congratulate Mahar for running the gauntlet, essentially the entire 30 plus years or so post-EDSA period. Na ang ganda ng naging role ng SWS in terms of its credibility and also its role in giving our people voice. And the people were very hungry to have their voices heard after the dictatorship. So I consider SWS to be one of those singular innovations that really was very critical in that period and still is critical today. But I would also credit Mahar actually for challenging maybe the next generation of researchers to try and dig deeper into survey results and opinion research. So dyan naman, it's not just Mahar, as our good friend Ronnie Holmes of Pulse Asia, Toots Albert, another basically advisor in this area. And I consider all of them to be very, very authoritative in terms of polling and survey work. And it prompted us to try and start this innovation called Boses Pilipinas. So just to differentiate, yung Participate is the coalition. It's a pro-democracy coalition comprised of 2,500 people's organizations, academic institutions, NGOs, civil society groups, religious groups, and so on and so forth. Tapos, within the Participate, meron tayong isang institutional innovation called Boses Pilipinas. And I will just read the descriptor just to be very precise about it. Boses Pilipinas, it actually stands for Boses, Opinion, Siyasat at Siyensya para sa Pilipinas. And we think it is one of the first university-based opinion and survey research units established in the country. And its main aim is to advance empirical, interdisciplinary, and policy-oriented studies of public opinion on democracy, governance, and development. Now, it is inspired actually by the bigger survey groups. And as I mentioned, Mahar is one of those leaders who has actually challenged the younger researchers to do your own surveys. Natatandaan ko pa yung sinabi sa akin ni Mahar. Do your own surveys, dig deeper, contribute to the discourse so that it's a richer discourse on opinion research in the country. And we believe it is timely. Kasi kung si Mahar nag-start noon, baka mas bata pa siya sa akin nung nag-start siya. Nag-start siya noon after or just around the dictatorship, no? Mahar, just around that time. Ito namang Boses Pilipinas starting around the time of fake news, disinformation, the growth of social media, and also populism, which is dramatically creating many social and political divides in the country. So dyan naka-focus yung research namin, and we're very happy to consider Mahar and others as friends of this initiative. But we're really more of an opinion research initiative. We're going to try and become very multidisciplinary in our efforts. Kasi talagang hindi kulang na yung economics, kulang yung political science to understand the kinds of things that are happening in social media. So kailangan natin ng other fields to cross disciplines and collaborate so that we better understand what our people are perceiving, what they are feeling, so minsan emotions, and then also their understanding of policy issues and so on and so forth. So yan yung emphasis namin sa Boses Pilipinas.
Very interesting nga po yung mga na-bring up niyo pong dalawa actually. Thank you po for those points. So na-mention po ni Dr. Mahar earlier yung importance of using these, the information that we get from surveys to, kasi syempre the ideal po talaga is evidence-based policy making, and to have the data from our surveys reflect that, as well as the importance of opinion surveys, in that it's important of course to ask people, everyday people, what they think, how they perceive these things, and how these things can feed into our policies as well. So, punta naman po tayo sa mga tanong. Actually, we already getting some questions. So, to our Facebook audience, patuloy-tuloy lang po ang pagtatanong. Feel free to leave comments and questions. So, a question that I'm sure is on a lot of people's minds is, paano daw po napipili yung mga respondents ninyo? And actually, how are the surveys, not just election surveys, conducted? Parang how are they prepared for? And are there limitations po to preparing for this? So anyone can start po.
Okay, kailangan scientific ito. Okay. Statistically scientific. The basis of statistics is random sampling. Random. Walang preference. Walang preference. Kung hindi random ang sample mo, hindi a-apply ang mga formulas for errors. That's the most important thing. Okay. Secondly, for measuring any percentage of something, you need a certain absolute number, not a proportion, an absolute number like 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000. Actually, the gold standard for a national survey worldwide is 1,000, only 1,000. Regardless if it's Singapore, Philippines, China, Denmark, etc., 1,000 okay na yan kung national. Ang aming national is 1,200. Built up into 4 parts, 300 ang Metro Manila, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. We always do it that way. So actually, we are doing 4 surveys and then merging them together. Okay. In each of them, we're careful about the assignment of a certain number of respondents to find. Okay. And then stepwise, we choose where the sample will come from. Stepwise, we choose the regions. We choose actually from the regions, we usually go already straight to the barangay because we have a list of barangays. Okay. And we're using a quota of 5 respondents per barangay. So for 1,200 total respondents to be interviewed, we need 600 spots all over the country. 600. But every time we go from one step to another, we always choose probability proportional to size. No? Yung mas malaking probinsya, mas may probability. And so, like that, right? And well, at the bottom, the barangay is chosen at random in the office, and then the interviewers are given their assignments. No? Kung saan kayo pupunta. Okay. When you go there, it's a random procedure. Okay, pwede sila mag-umpisa halimbawa sa simbahan. But that's the starting point. But even that is random. Pwedeng simbahan, pwedeng basketball court, pwedeng ganito. Okay, random din yan. Pre-assigned yun kung saan ka mag-uumpisa. Pagkatapos, there is a specifically, there is a determined way of walking around the barangay in a certain direction, and then choosing every nth household. Let us say every 5th, every 6th, whatever that is, pero yan na yun. So, set na yun. Ano? Hindi pwedeng hindi pwedeng mag-adlib yung interviewer pumunta kung saan siya gusto. Susundin niya ang instructions. Okay? Pagdating sa bahay, of course, tatanungin kung payag sila ma-interview kasi voluntary ito, voluntary. At kukuha tayo ng listahan kung sinong nandiyan na pwede ma-interview. Kasi kung halimbawa, adults only, kailangan namin ng listahan ng mga adults. At doon sa listahan ng mga adults, pipila kami at random, isang adult doon na magiging respondent siya. At kung wala siya dyan, at that time, babalik niyo yung interviewer mamayang hapon o bukas at i-interviewin siya. Okay? So, and then maybe 2 days later, may susunod na inspector na pupunta din sa route na yun at ma-check kung talaga may pupunta dito yung interviewer at kinuha yung mga data ng ganito. Alright? So maraming quality checks na ganoon. Now, kami nakagawa na ng siguro a little less than 1,000 surveys in our experience, no? At ang mga na-interview namin ay mga 1-point-something million respondents at this time. Bilang yun, by the way, bilang yun. Kasi on the average, if it's national, was at least 1,000. Now, tingnan mo naman yan na ano ang chance na ma-select ka at random kung ganun lang. Talagang mahirap ka ma-select at random. That's so small within 65 million adults. Yan ang usual population namin, yung adults. Kasi bihira na i-interview kami ng bata, ng mga children, ng mga adults. So really, your chances of being selected are very small. And you might say, bakit hindi ako survey? Kasi napakaliit ang survey namin. Bakit maliit? Para mura. Alright? Like, if you're going to get a blood sample, gusto mo ba ng isang baso ng dugo na kukunin sa'yo? Hindi. Pwede na mga isang patak. Kung pwede yan. Mas mura yan. Hindi masakit. And that's the scientific way of doing it. Actually, when we began in 1985, 86, tigto 2,000 ang national samples namin. Pretty soon, we said na masyadong mahal yun. Liitan natin ng konti. Now, why? Para makagawa ng mas madaming survey. You see? Magawa ka ng 2 survey at 2 points in time, mas madaming data ka kaysa isang mas malaki at 1 time only. See, that's the economics of survey research. Now, we have also surveyed about this kung naniniwala ang mga tao na kasya na ang 1,000 sa isang national survey. Actually, hindi naniniwala ang mga tao. Pero alam nila na lumilipad. Lumilipad ang eroplano, alam nila yon. Hindi nila alam kung paano lumilipad, pero lumilipad. Alright? So if you ask this, also Americans have been asked, they don't know how it happens. No? Bakit 1,000 lang? But they know it works. Okay? And we also ask them kung gusto nila ng mga survey. Oh, gustong-gusto nila. Mabuti yan. Okay? So, huwag kayo maalala na hindi ito scientific ito. Pero siyempre, ginagawa namin ng mabuti para magawa ng paulit-ulit. Ng paulit-ulit. So, siyempre, we only need, for example, in a city, we only recommend 300. Tama na yun. Gusto mong mas mahal? Well, siyempre, magiging mas accurate, pero do you want to spend that much? That's the pros and cons, about conducting a survey. I mean, we can discuss with you anong, ganong kaganda ang gusto mong result, ganda in terms of accuracy. And doon ang mga sample size. Actually, hindi masyado importante 'yon. Madali 'yon. Mas importante ang privacy, of the respondent hindi natatakot, no? Talagang walang tamang sagot, walang maling sagot. Kung ano ang sasagutin, yan na. Okay? Dapat very disciplined ang mga interviewers, hindi lilihis sa questionnaire, word for word. May script yan. Hindi sila gagamit ng kanilang explanation. Kaya nga na pre-test para hindi na kailangan ng explanation pa. Baka doon pa ma-affect yung resulta sa pag-explain ng mga interviewer. Bawal mag-explain ang mga interviewer. Okay? Kahit anong sagot, kahit na no answer, pati yun ay nire-record at inuuwi. Okay? And then, kasi you're taking all of this effort to get good data, you have to archive it from the beginning. Ang lahat talaga ng namin, from the beginning, even pre-SWS, naka-archive. Naka-archive and it's available for the public, for the researcher. No? Not immediately. No? Okay? Not immediately. Gusto niyo mag-practice? Gusto niyo malaman ang history ng election surveys? Yung mga 2009 and beforehand, lahat na yun pwede niyong tingnan. Local surveys, national surveys, para matuto kayo mag-analyze. Tingnan ninyo kung nag-predict o hindi. And then you will see that they predict. Not 100%, no? But I think 90% they predict. Now, then I will, sa totoo, this works. This works. And I'm sure maraming gumagamit. Kasi maraming marunong. Yung lahat ng mga market companies, research companies, marunong sila. Siguro, they're getting involved. Pero quiet lang. Kasi that's a business naman, Quiet lang. And if they're successful, babalik at babalik ang mga customers nila. Pero kung magkamali ka, di siyempre mawawala ng ang kwan mo. See? That's the market test. That's why we're not worried, no? About competition. What happened to fact base? Yung nag-predict na si Jody Venecia daw ay mananalo. Within 6 months, out of business na sila. So, by the law of the market, mamamatay na lang ang mga hindi scientific. Wala kaming worry tungkol doon. I think our best recommendation now is our age, na all of these times nandun kami, and you can look at the old data. Nandyan yan talaga. We have been keeping this as an archive since the very, very beginning. In fact, Ron, maghanda na rin kayo, kung saan nyo i-archive yan. That's no joke. That's no joke. We will do our best to help. No? We are also linked with the foreign archives kung paano mag-archive ng survey data.
We actually are getting a lot of questions nga po on the methodology and the process. And although I know Bosses Pilipinas is also just proceeding, starting po with yung surveys, but maybe Dean Ron can also answer this question in relation to the work that is also done at the School of Government. So the question is, 2 questions on your methodology. First is, how do you plan the timeline of when starting with data collection for a survey? And second, is there a need for filtering survey results? And if so, what's the most challenging part about it? Maybe we can start with Dean Ron and then, of course, Prof. Mahar after.
Yes, thank you, Bea. First, let me clarify that much of what Mahar has explained refers to the complexity of setting up a nationally representative survey, which is really the main strength of basically the 2 big survey firms in the country, Pulse Asia and SWS. This is actually the challenge in terms of interpreting different surveys, because pag nirelease mo na yan sa media, hindi sila kasing careful nila Mahar, Social Weather Station at saka ng Pulse, minsan hindi naman pala nationally representative yung survey, pero pag ang na-cover na siya ng media, akala ng tao nationally representative siya. So dyan nag-raise ng caution si Mahar about some of those survey firms that are trying to contribute also to the survey work, pero hindi kasing transparent, it seems, in terms of their sampling, their methods, and so on and so forth. Whereas some of the well-regarded survey firms, very transparent naman yung practice, no? And you can actually contact them. Someone will give you the details of the survey, and they have very elaborate press releases and press cons to give the public and the media a better appreciation of all that went into the survey. So when it comes to Boses Pilipinas, tama si Mahar, magastos yung malaking survey, no? Ang focus namin actually right now is not a nationally representative set of surveys, but to focus on subgroups and then to dig deeper into the answers that they provide in the surveys. In that way, we see ourselves as complementary to the bigger survey firms. And so nabanggit na kanina dun sa usapan, and I think one of our listeners mentioned, totoo ba na merong fear sa surveys, no? The bigger survey firms, they have done many steps. They have tried to professionalize the way that they actually field the surveys, and many of them are actually face-to-face surveys. And this actually allows you to limit that kind of concern. Pero what about the other survey firms pagka nag-field sila? Ganon din bang ka-professional? Ganon din bang ka-careful yung pag-field? So in fact, we're doing some research right now, drawing on basically an idea from a colleague from Mexico. In fact, we just had a meeting with him and featured this study in a discussion in Ateneo School of Government. His name is Zach Zimbalist, and basically his study is about the fear of the state bias, right? So we're trying to field those kinds of surveys also so that we can test whether meron nga ba talagang fear of the state. Imbis na sinasabi lang namin na hindi, walang fear of the state yan. What we want to do is to actually test that hypothesis. There is also the concern that surveys may actually lead to parang self-fulfilling prophecies. Essentially, pag nakita nung resulta na ganito na yung malakas, it leads to some sort of strengthening of that particular set of results, no? Hindi lang yan pagdating sa election aspirants. Pagdating na rin yan sa policy. And Mahar and I have had long talks about this, and I'm really appreciative of the way that he has been very, very careful in terms of interpreting the survey results. For instance, pagka mataas sa survey na sumusuporta ang Pilipino sa isang polisiya, for instance, the anti-drugs campaign, or sumusuporta sa isang ahensya, let's say the Armed Forces of the Philippines. Yan yung and then you ask follow-up questions, and as Mahar described, you also create a continuous assessment of the particular issue so that you have the bigger picture, right? So lumalabas, according to some of the surveys, the Filipinos are supportive of the anti-drugs campaign, but they are concerned that many Filipinos are also accused wrongly of being involved in drugs. Gusto nila actually buhay, hindi patay yung mahuhuli na may drugs. And presumably so that you go through the due process, right? So yan yung mga issues na
They don't believe the police.
They don't believe the police. Thank you, Mahar.
Yeah, they don't believe the police. Yeah.
Well,
You ask them.
so those are the kinds of issues that we hope to do deeper research in collaboration with the authorities, by the way, with government, so that you better understand what is the kind of support you're getting, no? Hindi yung shallow lang yung interpretation ng support, no? Suporta sila, pero baka naman meron ding pag-aalinlangan dun sa way na niro-roll out yung policy. Baka naman may ways for improvement. So these are part of what we work on, and obviously fear of the state is another challenge that we've been trying to tackle in terms of the Boses Pilipinas work. So let me just
Very important.
clarify that hindi different siya from the nationally representative surveys of SWS and Pulse. Maybe one day we will implement those. But for now, we are focused on digging deeper and focusing on opinion research. So our upcoming release next month actually focuses on disinformation and fake news and how it relates to our youth, which I'm sure, many of the other survey firms and partners are also very curious to learn more about in a deeper way. So our survey instrument is designed specifically to dig deeper into that particular topic.
Fear of the state is very important. Kasi if kung takot magsalita ang mga respondent, siyempre ma-affect yun. You can't blame them. You can't blame them for not wanting to put themselves in any danger, in any risk. Alam nila na hindi sila matatakot sa amin, sa mga interviewers. Pero baka makalabas or something, baka makalabas ang attitude nila, baka may mangyari sa kanila. And that's something we really have to contend with. They can criticize many things, They can they're criticizing about the West Philippine Sea all the time and the China. Yan, tuloy-tuloy yun. So if the administration is so popular, but hindi nila makonbinsihan ang mga respondents tungkol sa mga Chinese medicines, yung mga ganon. And tungkol sa West Philippine Sea, mga ganon. Alright? So, depende kung saan sila takot, And for sa akin, you related, how about to medicine? To medicine. How can you treat a patient na yung treatment mo ay masasaktan siya, Yung invasive, Yung invasive ang treatment mo. Yung kukuha ka ng sample sa kanyang katawan. Na siyempre mahirap gawin yun. You have to do it in a way na napapayag yung pasyente mo. Or else you wouldn't know the real thing. And well, that's just part of the facts of life. It's not a problem with the sampling. It's the problem of parang clinical. Clinical. How do you handle something like that?
Very interesting. We received also a very interesting question, and I think very related to the idea also of collaborators. Who are you working with to work on your research? So, two related questions. Sabi po dito, as you mentioned, the economics of statistics, do funders of these surveys determine the thrusts and results they want to focus on? And a related question for Dr. Mangahas, but I think both of you can give some input on this. Aren't you worried or concerned at all that commissioned political surveys help subvert the will of the people by conditioning the public's mind on whom to vote based on the result of the surveys? That could be interpreted to suit the particular interest of those who commissioned it. And as a Filipino, do you not think that using the survey as a tool for preconditioning threaten these regular democratic processes? So, related questions po on funders and commissioned surveys.
Yung tungkol sa funders, funders can tell you about the subject matter to be researched, but they cannot tell you the findings that you will get. Kaya nga nagpapa-research kayo para malaman ang mga sagot sa mga questions nila tungkol sa subject matter. That's why we have to have our own subject matter also. That's why we don't want, no funder can tell us, wag kayo mag-research sa poverty. All right? So that's why we have to have our own topics. Now, there is an ethics in survey research. In fact, the best way is you look at the Code of Professional Ethics of the World Association for Public Opinion Research. Okay. WAPOR, W-A-P-O-R. There's the ethics for the doer of the survey. There's the ethics for the sponsor of the survey. There's the ethics for the one responding to the survey. No? All of this may ethics, no? Kung ano ang dapat sundin ng doer of the survey to respect, no? To respect the rights of the sponsors and to respect the rights of the respondents. Yeah? But never is there a way whereby the researcher, the doer, as us, is forced to produce findings desired by somebody else. Never. You can just say, that's not the result, I will not report that. Tapos. Okay? If you do that, then of course that's unethical already. You just say, yun ang result mo. Kung ayaw mong i-report, wag mong i-report. Pero we cannot report something that's false. Okay? Kahit na we cannot report something partial. Pagkatapos, if you see the whole report, yung pala, it's mitigated by something else. Okay? That's not ethical also. Kaya't kailangan, kung may isang report, at i-release yan, buong-buong i-release, hindi partial. Okay? Buong-buo, para makita ang lahat. Kasi kung partial, then magiging parang selected. So magiging parang part of the propaganda campaign. That's not that's not fair. You see? That's not fair. Mas mabuting walang komentaryo kaysa sa may komentaryo na misleading. Okay? Now, of course, if you're a sponsor, hindi magagawa yung research kung hindi dahil sa'yo. So you can do with it what you like, you know? Kaya nga meron kami sariling agenda where we can do whatever we like. Okay? Pati kayo, by the way. Pati kayo. And by the way, I also believe that you don't even have to release everything that we find. If in our judgment, it's bad for democracy. It's bad for the country. What's wrong with that? You know, we are not that non-partisan. No, we are partisan for democracy. So if there is some result there that's alanganin for democracy, wag na lang sabihin yun. You know, parang let other people find it out if they can. Okay. Remember, itong research na ito, this is not something monopolized. Anybody can do it. What we can find, anybody else can find. Diba? Just by doing the same survey, and if they're scientific, they'll get the same results. Okay? So we're not preventing it from being found. So if there is something that you think is there, edi mag-survey kayo ng sarili, and then you can put it out. Okay? Let multiple surveys happen para magkompetensya sila. I'm also an economist. So I believe in competition. Science is replication. Kailangan kung may totoo, makikita yan ulit sa replication. That's the basic challenge of science.
Dean Ron, anything you'd like to add to that, Paul?
No, very little. I actually, ang ganda nung pagbabahagi ni Mahar na yung ethics of opinion research and surveys. I think he's very much on the ball in terms of that one. Yung nag-sponsor, yung nagko-conduct, yung sumasagot, lahat yon merong may certain ethics.
May rights.
Kaya lang meron tayong concern, no? Kasi hindi naman lahat nung head ng survey groups ay katulad ni Mahar. Na matigas, pwede mong sandalan yung ethics ni Mahar. So I guess that is the concern, di ba? Is what if they're not like the esteemed person we're talking to today. We have to understand what the implications are for our democracy if more and more of the non-ethical are actually participating in this field and basically bombarding our people with a lot of trash, no? So ang ano ko, maganda yung observation ni Mahar na maybe the law of the market can basically clean it up. Kung trash yung iba, talagang hindi napapansinin ng media yung mga trash, di ba? Kasi alam nila na last cycle nag-predict tapos wala, way off, no? Baka dinoktor pa yung resulta, who knows, right? Pero hindi siya ganoon eh. Like every cycle there's a new group tapos you're still struggling to find out whether pagkakatiwalaan ba natin to o hindi. I guess there is also the ethics of media coverage of surveys na we have to work with our media partners, with our collaborators there na siguro naman, uunahin ko na yung baka naman pwede ko. Baka naman pwedeng wag nyo na i-cover yung trash. I-cover nyo na lang yung mas mahusay. Tapos yung the academic community, baka naman pwedeng we can include more and more of these survey groups so that we can begin to wean out already in the first place. Kesa yung mismong election cycle itself, dun natin makikita lahat, every conceivable survey coming out na hindi naman nationally representative pero ang buladas nila sa media, akala mo nationally representative just like SWS or Pulse.
Yeah, okay, local. Local. Do local.
Yes, so yun. So masyadong polite sila, Mahar, like they do not call them out. I think we should really be frank about some of the other survey groups.
We're very proud of the Holy Name University in Bohol. Mga proteges namin yun, no? They're doing now the Bohol poll. For years now, may Bohol poll. Lahat kayong Ateneo sa Cagayan de Oro, sa Davao, sa Naga, lahat kayo nakakagawa naman kayo ng survey. So don't have to make it the whole country. Doon sa lugar ninyo, kahit citywide, okay yun.
Actually, we're approaching for the last so unfortunately, we are reaching the end po of our discussion. Grabe, ang bilis po nung isang oras. Ang dami po nating na-discuss from, the difference in the kinds of surveys and the opinion, what is surveying and how is it done, opinion polling and the process of preparing for that, and the importance of being able to determine the difference between these sources. And actually may mga maganda nga pong question dito sa audience na maybe we can tackle for another time kung papayagan po ulit regarding how to make nga po interpreting survey results and how to make this more accessible. But before we end, we'd just like to ask both of you. So medyo nasimulan na po ni Dean Ron, pero hihingi po tayo ng pabaon mula sa guests natin ngayon to give your takeaways, your key message for our viewers to consider regarding surveys and everything that we discussed. Starting po with the with the phrase, baka naman pwede. So ano po yung mga baka naman pwedeng i-consider ng ating audience and mga nakikinig? Maybe we can start with Prof. Mahar.
Huwag kayong maniwala sa mga Facebook surveys na porket libo-libong mga sumasagot diyan, akala ninyo ano na yan. The size that's not a sample at all. Okay? So that's just like a microphone, porket malakas ang volume, akala nyo totoo yun. Porket ang reach na yun. Okay? So, I think that's a fad. At maya-maya, wala na. Okay? But there could be a way. There could be a way. It's complicated to get online probability-based surveys. We will work on that also. But hanapin niyo kung hindi nakalagay na probability-based, wag kayong maniwala doon. That takes a lot of work to be able to get a probability-based sample online. So, wag kayong maniwala sa mga Twitter, blah, blah. It's waste of your time in science. It's just noise.
Dean Ron?
Yes, I just want to thank again the IPC, radyo-katipunan, mga tagapakinig natin. I guess yung statement ko, baka naman pwedeng magtulong-tulong tayo para mas maingat yung pag-interpret natin ng mga surveys, mas evidence-based siya, at mas maganda sana yung information na nababahagi natin sa mga kapwa Pilipino natin. Starting with the good basis already of SWS and Pulse, who are, I think, the two very trustworthy survey groups in the country, with their track record, with their accuracy, which is demonstrated over time. We can build on that and deepen our understanding of survey results, maybe even modernize some of our techniques. So natutuwa ako kay Mahar na he keeps on looking at new areas for expansion of opinion research. Kaya nga tinitingnan na rin namin yung iba-ibang aspeto na yan. Social media is really the new territory now, and the deep divides in social media are part of what is motivating us in Boses Pilipinas. Kasi we intend to bridge these cultural, social, economic divides, political divides. And the first way to do that is actually to understand the differences in opinion, the differences in perception of policies, the differences in political stance. Na parang palalim ng palalim yung divides eh. So dito namin gustong tumulong, working with the other survey groups. Dito namin gustong mag-conduct ng research. So makakaasa kayo na, baka naman pwedeng mag-collaborate tayong lahat dyan sa area na yan. So yan yung parting message ko.
Maraming salamat po. At dito po nagtatapos ang Baka Naman Pwede. Maraming salamat po muli kay Prof. Mahar at kay Dean Ron sa pagpapaunlak tsaka sa ating kwentuhan. Ang dami po naming natutunan this afternoon. Bitin na bitin po talaga. And we're very excited for these possibilities and yung mga Baka Naman Pwede na collaboration as we advocate po for more evidence-based policy making. So next week, samahan niyo po muli kami dito sa Baka Naman Pwede sa bago naming time slot na 2 p.m. Makakasama natin si Ms. Sharon Lopez Geronimo na founder ng Breastfeeding Alae para pag-usapan ang breastfeeding sa panahon ng COVID-19. So health naman ang topic natin next week. At baka naman pwedeng i-like nyo na rin ang Institute of Philippine Culture sa Facebook para sa iba pa naming mga announcements at events. Until next time, ako po si Trixie Beato. Mag-iingat kayo at laging tandaan, kung may hindi maiintindihan, baka naman pwedeng pag-usapan. Maraming salamat po.
Salamat, Trixie. Salamat, Ron. Thank you.
Salamat.
Baka naman pwede.
Baka naman pwede.
Baka naman pwede.
Mga isyung napapanahon, ating pag-usapan.
Baka naman pwede.
Gamit ang mga pananaw mula sa iba't ibang kalinangan.
Baka naman pwede.
Mula sa Institute of Philippine Culture, kami inyong samahan, tayo'y maghuntahan. Dito lang sa
Baka naman pwede.
Tuwing Huwebes, alas 3 ng hapon, dito lang sa Radyo Katipunan 87.9 FM.